The world's first Black Widow, Griselda, was a pioneering female drug lord who initiated the practice of using people to transport drugs. At her peak, she could earn $80 million a month. A woman blew her husband's head off with a single shot, simply because he had personally delivered her to another man's bed that night. Griselda's husband was a drug smuggler who had recently lost a significant shipment, causing his reputation in the underworld to plummet. Suppliers refused to work with him anymore, so he turned his attention to Griselda.
Porque siempre le ha gustado. Una noche con él y saldamos nuestra deuda.
Tears welled up in Griselda's eyes as she entered the supplier's grand villa. Afterward, however, her husband questioned her in detail about what had happened. This completely ignited Griselda's fury, and she demanded a clean break from her husband. When her shameless husband pursued her, she simply pulled out a gun and shot him in the head. Griselda killed her husband and was injured herself, but she dared not go to the hospital. Fearing retaliation from her husband's men, she hastily treated her wound. Then, under the cover of night, she took her children to Miami to seek refuge with her best friend. Her friend provided Griselda with a place to stay and a job, but Griselda was not satisfied. She had brought a kilogram of high-quality goods with her. If she could just find a way to sell it, she could make a comeback. The next day, Griselda contacted her friends and learned about potential buyers in Miami from them. That night, she put on her most alluring dress and went to a nightclub, quickly locating the buyer her friends had mentioned.
Then I guess you like the finer things, huh?
Rafa Rodriguez, call him Al McCoy. We all work for mama, one way or another.
The mustachioed man in front of Griselda was nothing more than a low-level thug. Griselda wanted to use him to meet a drug lord named Amilcar. But who was this drug lord? How could he possibly be interested in a mere kilogram of goods? He ruthlessly drove Griselda away, and even nearly vented his anger on the clueless mustachioed man. The mustachioed man blamed everything on Griselda. As soon as they were outside, he forced Griselda at gunpoint to hand over the kilogram of drugs. Griselda was new to the scene and had no power or weapons of her own, so she had no choice but to let the mustachioed man snatch away her only leverage. However, Griselda, who could personally shoot her own husband, was certainly not a weak or incompetent person. She composed herself and began to prepare her counterattack. She followed the mustachioed man all day and discovered that he was looking everywhere for buyers to take the kilogram of drugs. She quickly ambushed him by his car, lying in wait like a hunter guarding its prey.
Fucking selling my coke to that guy? Or I'm gonna tell Amilcar where you came.
Griselda not only got her goods back, but also forced the mustachioed man to find buyers for her. However, she didn't expect him to come looking for her at her workplace. Her best friend knew about Griselda's past. Seeing her mixed up with those people again, she immediately understood what Griselda was doing. Her friend took away Griselda's job and her house, leaving Griselda with no way out. The next day, she paid a waiter $200 to be her bodyguard. Then, she took him to the location specified by the mustachioed man. This buyer was not associated with Amilcar. He had his own territory and channels. Griselda knew that she couldn't show the slightest hint of weakness when dealing with this kind of person, or the deal would be controlled by the other party. She frowned and didn't budge an inch, finally selling the goods to him for $20,000. After the transaction, the two danced in celebration. Griselda was clear about what might happen next, but to achieve great things, one couldn't be overly concerned with minor details. Griselda had prepared herself mentally, but she never expected an accident to occur at that moment. It was obvious that this was a war caused by two gangs fighting for territory. Unfortunately, neither of them was the winner tonight, because the real winner was Amilcar's subordinate behind the scenes. Amilcar's subordinate took the kilogram of drugs. Fortunately, Griselda had put the $20,000 in her bag beforehand, which saved her capital for a comeback. Her husband had once mocked Griselda, saying she wouldn't get far on her own. But Griselda was determined to see if she could break into this circle by herself. With a face covered in blood, she found Amilcar and had him taste the goods he had seized. She was confident that once he tried it, he would continue to work with her. If she could climb up to this big drug lord Amilcar, she would have nothing to worry about in the future.
You have one shot. Double my order next month and I'll make you my supplier.
To deliver the quantity Amilcar wanted on time, she asked her friend to bring all her former colleagues over. Each of these colleagues had a bag of drugs concealed in their underwear lining. Together, these items were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they brought in and sold a batch every month, they could easily make at least $300,000 a year. Griselda was ecstatic. The next day, she took her friend to meet Amilcar. But to her surprise, there was someone else there, and this person, like her, was also a supplier.
Well, I'm not buying your coke.
Excuse me?
That's Papo Mejia. And he and I had a little disagreement over price, right?
Yes, she did.
Amilcar was actually using Griselda to bargain down his own suppliers. He never intended to partner with a woman from the start, believing that a woman's greatest value was as a housewife. Amilcar thoroughly humiliated Griselda, even stating that he could buy her entire shipment for a quarter of the original price. He was certain that without him, Griselda wouldn't be able to sell her goods, which is why he dared to be so arrogant. Her friend stopped Griselda, who was on the verge of exploding in anger, reminding her that this wasn't their territory and they had to leave to find another way. They hadn't paid the manufacturer for this batch of goods, as her friend had obtained it on credit. If they didn't find a buyer soon, they would completely lose the manufacturer's trust. Griselda was extremely anxious, unaware that another crisis was approaching her. Because Griselda had shot her husband, his assassins were now searching for her. They had already tracked down Griselda's former colleagues and learned that Griselda had taken more than a dozen girls to Miami. It was only a matter of time before the assassins arrived in Miami to settle the score with Griselda. But Griselda was completely unaware of this. She spent the entire night thinking and finally came up with a way to break the deadlock. Since the drug lord Amilcar wouldn't include her, she might as well start her own business. Griselda gathered all the girls and made them all her direct subordinates. However, they didn't need to sell the drugs. They just needed to deliver them for free. Only by building a reputation could she gather all the upper-class individuals who had needs. Without middlemen taking a cut, she would be the direct source.
Just giving out samples, trying to set up her own market. Now she's wasting her time.
Amilcar wouldn't allow Griselda's wild expansion. He called his suppliers, wanting to nip Griselda's business in the bud. At the same time, Griselda also invited the manufacturer. She truthfully told him about her current situation and earnestly requested a long-term partnership. She boldly stated that as long as the manufacturer joined forces with her, he would never need to look for other buyers again. The manufacturer didn't believe her, so she took him to the kingdom she had built. This was a cruise ship specially prepared for the wealthy. Every week, she would invite rich people to gather there. Because the girls had previously given many wealthy individuals free samples, many were now willing to come and support her. Seeing this scene, the manufacturer was naturally extremely satisfied, but Amilcar's supplier wouldn't give up so easily.
Come on, Papo, come on.
Amilcar's supplier thought he could intimidate Griselda this way, but Griselda was never one to be easily frightened. And besides, the manufacturer was there. The manufacturer stepped forward with his men and declared fiercely that going against Griselda was the same as going against him, because from this moment on, he was Griselda's partner. Griselda seized the opportunity to call out to the guests on the cruise ship. She said the supplier was disrupting their party, and the guests immediately started throwing glasses at him. Griselda successfully diffused the crisis and also secured the opportunity to cooperate with the manufacturer. From now on, she could get as many goods as she wanted. After the party, Griselda personally saw the girls off. These women would never have to do that kind of work again. As long as they honestly worked for Griselda, they would definitely be well rewarded. By the time Griselda finished, it was already morning. She took off her high heels and quietly returned to her residence, only to find that 2 uninvited guests had already arrived. Griselda's husband's brother was a notorious drug lord in Medellin. Back then, Griselda had been personally sent by her husband to the drug lord's house to serve him, which is why Griselda had killed her husband in resentment. Now that this drug lord had come to seek revenge, she had no chance of winning. The assassins who came to kill her ended up killing her enemies instead. This was because the main assassin wouldn't kill children and happened to be somewhat interested in her. Now that the assassin had eliminated his own boss for her sake, Griselda naturally wanted to bring him under her wing. No relationship could be more secure than this. Griselda quickly captivated the assassin with her charm. And with his addition, her business flourished even more smoothly. Before long, a major drug lord wanted to buy out her territory. This drug lord had so much product that he needed airplanes to transport it, but he didn't want to work with Griselda.
$15 million. Todos dos.
If Griselda accepted this money, she could live worry-free for the rest of her life. The FBI was investigating intensely, and the manufacturer supplying Griselda was eager to retire completely. But Griselda didn't agree because she wasn't alone in this anymore. She had a friend who provided strategies, an assassin who eliminated threats, and a group of sisters who trusted her implicitly. She aspired to become a true godmother. After leaving, Griselda immediately spoke with the manufacturer. She pointed out that since the drug lord wanted to buy out her business, her operation was worth far more than $15 million. If she persevered, she would definitely earn more than $15 million in the future. She persuaded the manufacturer to continue supplying her, offering him 25% of her profits. Griselda successfully convinced the manufacturer, but in doing so, she offended the drug lord's side. Her friend told her that convincing one man was different from convincing 20. Griselda might have persuaded the manufacturer, but how would she convince the other powers in the city?
We fucking come together. We unite. That's how we're gonna take control. And keep what is fucking ours.
Griselda's passionate speech earned applause from the crowd. But there was a troublesome individual among them, Amilcar's supplier. Because he had previously competed with Griselda, he had always disliked her. This supplier stated that cooperation was possible, but he wouldn't allow a woman like Griselda to hold the dominant power. Furthermore, since a big shot like Amilcar hadn't even come today, what was the point of their group discussion? Amilcar's right-hand man, Curly, told everyone that Amilcar was being watched by the FBI and planned to accept the major drug lord's buyout offer. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd began to back down, and they all left the scene. Griselda had no choice but to find Curly and ask him to take her to Amilcar. She wanted to persuade Amilcar to give up the buyout, but Amilcar had killed someone, and the police had found a witness. He had to take this opportunity to disappear completely. Griselda was unwilling to give up, so she proposed helping Amilcar eliminate the witness. Her assassin was extremely efficient. The next day, the FBI discovered that the witness and their entire family had been brutally murdered, with only a 6-month-old baby surviving in the house. Griselda had taken care of Amilcar's problem, and now everyone had to obey her. Her sisters had already started preparing the celebration. Everyone thought she would become the queen pin of Miami, but unexpectedly, something still went wrong on Amilcar's end. Although there was no witness, the police had collected his fingerprints at the crime scene. They apprehended Amilcar. But Griselda was completely unaware of this. She dressed elegantly for the evening's gathering, but when she arrived, she discovered that the main figure tonight was the major drug lord. With Amilcar gone, everyone had flocked to his side. Even the manufacturer who supplied Griselda had joined this group. Griselda had been pushed out. However, this didn't dampen her fighting spirit. Instead, it sparked a bold idea.
¿Ese?
¿Quieres una cerveza, papi? Sí.
The veteran drug manufacturer who had dominated the scene for years was now gone. Anyone who betrayed the cocaine godmother would not have a good end. Griselda sent the assassin and his men to deal with these people, while she took her 3 children and hid in a safe place. Griselda thought that after killing those competitors, the major drug lord would have no choice but to cooperate with her alone. But she didn't expect the major drug lord to come see her just to mock her. Papo, who had previously supplied Amilcar, was still alive, which meant he would seek violent revenge on Griselda. Although Griselda was hiding and wouldn't be found by Papo, her subordinates weren't so lucky. Griselda told the assassin to hurry and save them, but the assassin was too late. Everyone involved in the murders and bombings was dead. Their heads had been cut off, and their deaths were gruesome. Griselda felt responsible for their deaths, and she couldn't sleep that night. To make matters worse, she received an unexpected phone call. After Amilcar's arrest, his right-hand man, Curly, had fled to California. Curly called Griselda from California. His boss was now in jail. Among all the factions, he admired Griselda the most, so he wanted to join her team. However, Griselda didn't agree immediately because she hadn't yet recovered from the shock of her subordinates' deaths. The mother of one of her deceased subordinates came to see her, not to accuse or blame her, but to ask her to take in her other children. Their trust in her gave her the courage to try again. Griselda decided to personally take out Papo's assassins. Only in this way could she avenge her fallen subordinates. Her assassins swiftly secured the scene after entering the house. Griselda waited quietly outside but was seen by a neighbor. She didn't pay it much mind. Once things inside were over, she went in to deliver the final blow. She wanted to decapitate Papo's assassin, but in the end, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Griselda took Papo's assassin's necklace and put it on. Some of her deceased subordinates were Marielitos. Griselda used this connection to gather all the other Marielitos and won their trust and respect with a passionate speech.
Podamos tener lo que queremos, van a tener un propósito, ustedes van a estar sentados en esa bañándose en esa puta.
After that day, she formed an army with the Marielitos. She ordered them to eliminate all competitors and seize all their goods. Griselda wanted to make a big move, to show everyone her ruthlessness, so that no one would dare provoke her again. During this time, she became pregnant with the assassin's child, but she still had no intention of letting go of her ambition. She planned to expand her business even further. Those who wanted to push her out would find themselves swallowed whole. Griselda burned all the stolen goods, a move that utterly terrified the major drug lord. Even the most ruthless fear the desperate. Griselda became the local overlord of Miami, and even the major drug lord had to avoid her sharp edge. Before long, the major drug lord agreed to cooperate with Griselda. He brought a heavyweight figure, and Griselda brought her trusted friend, who provided strategies. The two sides sat down to discuss the partnership. The drug lord demanded that Griselda pay a price for her past actions. The woman would force anyone who displeased her to take off their pants, not just until they were completely naked. They also had to kneel before dozens, even hundreds of people, and bark like dogs on the ground. Because she was the female boss of Miami, no one present dared to disobey her. Ever since Griselda contacted the big boss behind the major drug lord 3 years prior, her remarkable life had begun. Although her friend had died because of her, it also freed her from any lingering worries. She had gained the opportunity to cooperate with the big boss. For the next 3 years, she was the undisputed cocaine godmother of Miami. Anyone who wanted to join had to get her approval. Griselda's business grew larger and larger, and her temper flared accordingly. For 3 years, the FBI had been watching her closely, recently even resorting to spreading false information that there was an informant within her inner circle. Griselda was misled by this false information to the point where she suspected everyone. Griselda's behavior gradually alienated those around her. Even her best friend no longer protected her. Her friend urged her to stop in time because the FBI had contacted her. The FBI asked her friend to reveal all of Griselda's criminal evidence. Although her friend didn't agree, she still recognized the danger. But when she told Griselda about this, Griselda suspected that her friend was the FBI's mole.
Is it you, Carmen? Who is fucking judging me with those sober eyes?
Griselda wanted to kill her best friend, but her assassin husband arrived in time to stop her. The assassin knew Griselda's judgment was clouded, but Griselda mistakenly believed his actions were to protect her friend. Griselda suspected that the assassin and her friend were having an affair, and even listed the assassin as a potential informant. Hearing that a subordinate wasn't listening to her son, she directly ordered Curly to kill that subordinate, but Curly failed. He only managed to kill the subordinate's child. This action completely lost Griselda the support of her people. Her brutal methods and ruthless personality made everyone afraid to stay by her side.
What can I do for you? The deal you offered? I'll take it.
Griselda had no choice but to seek help from the drug lord's sister, hoping she could put in a good word for her. But to her shock, the sister died unexpectedly in Griselda's home. Given Griselda's previous actions, the drug lord wouldn't believe it was an accident and would undoubtedly think Griselda was responsible. No longer daring to stay in Miami, Griselda quickly fled the city with her children. During her escape, she contacted the assassin, wanting him and their son to come with her. But the assassin was completely disillusioned with her. He wanted to live a peaceful life with their son. Griselda was furious, but preoccupied with escaping, she was powerless. This time, she had taken all her remaining goods with her and asked Curly to help her sell them unknowingly attracting the drug lord's attention. Meanwhile, the FBI had also gathered all the evidence of Griselda's crimes. Griselda had nearly killed her best friend, so her friend would naturally no longer help her. Her friend confessed everything she knew to the FBI in exchange for their protection. Griselda was now in dire straits. When the drug lord arrived in Los Angeles with his men, Curley also learned about it from his own contacts. He immediately notified Griselda, but Griselda didn't flee. She only told her sons to leave the hotel. Falling into the drug lord's hands meant certain death, but if she surrendered and called the police, there might still be a glimmer of hope. The drug lord was furious because Griselda wouldn't face the death penalty after being brought back to Miami. She had money and influence and could hire the best lawyers. Through a series of legal maneuvers, Griselda was only sentenced to 7 years in prison. During this time, she accomplished a significant task behind bars. She instructed her sons to help her find and bring back her youngest son. The assassin died in his own yard, and Griselda was finally reunited with her 4 sons. She believed that after her release, she could lead them to rebuild their empire. But in the period shortly before her scheduled release, her children were successively murdered by her enemies. At this moment, Griselda finally regretted her choices. If she had chosen to retire earlier, her family would likely be living happily. One wrong step led to another. No matter how glorious her early life had been, her later years were equally desolate. After her release from prison, Griselda returned to Medellin, Colombia. In 2012, she was shot and killed by unidentified assassins on the street at the age of 69.